Hey everyone, welcome back. I am so happy to have with me today Barri Leiner Grant. She is the founder and chief grief officer of the Memory Circle, a community and creative space for those learning to live with loss. She is a highly respected grief specialist, writer, coach, and educator, and she leads transformative gatherings, retreats, and workshops that explore grief tending tools, rituals, and practices that foster connection, healing, and hope. Barri, I'm so happy to have you here again back on the podcast because I think so much of what women who are going through divorce contend with is really intense grief.
It is.
And sometimes they don't name it that or they don't realize that's what's happening, but holy cow, is that what's happening?
Yeah, I think we are a fairly grief-denying society in general.
You
And
don't
when it
say.
comes when it comes to even death loss, but when it comes to non-death loss, I think
Right.
we often become our own judge and jury, if you will, about being able to name a non-death loss an opportunity for grief and processing, really learning how to live with a loss that is still very much alive in your life and
Mm,
all of the changes that come with it and the future that you imagined. I think there's more to grieve than we realize.
yes. And I like that you identify it as a non-death loss, right? Because it is such an enormous loss. And yet it feels like the person died. It feels like the marriage died. It feels like, but then you have this voice in your head always that's like, well, they didn't though,
Mhm.
right? So do you find that there's like this push and pull with accepting that like, oh, no, 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 this is like a very serious loss?
I have been able to better name through my Substack, through writing, through my community that these non-death losses need to be addressed.
Mm,
That, and there are several. Sometimes it's moving, sometimes it's changing house, sometimes it is um, losing a friendship.
mhm,
And there are so many. And I think naming it in my own divorce after having already lost my mom
mhm.
um, made people feel like they could too. You know, when I said, but it is, you need to grieve. You are grieving an entire future you imagined and wrote. It's like closing a chapter that you have already written out, whatever your forever looked like for you, sometimes for your kids, for your extended family, all the ways in which you work, maybe your sense of safety in the world, your financial safety. There is so much that we lose in divorce. And again, because there isn't necessarily a ritual or a
Mhm.
funeral or, you know, many
Right.
today have made some. I know you've told me about some fantastic rituals
Yeah.
that people can participate in.
Yeah.
Um, but because there isn't something like a funeral,
Mhm.
like a celebration of life, we don't name it. And so sometimes we can be even showing up at work every day and nobody knows, or we can be, I remember the days where I like couldn't show up at, pickup at school and had to have somebody pick my kids up.
Oh
It was
yeah.
very quiet what I was going through, but not on my insides.
Right, right, exactly. Well, that's a great segue into like your story. And I know this started probably for you, like we were just talking before we hit record, like way back, right? Like the beginning of the story is like our own parents' divorce and like what we went through with that. So, um, and I know that you went through multiple forms of grief and loss at the same time with the death of your mother and your divorce. So, just will you sort of introduce your story to
I would
everyone?
love to. Thank you.
Yeah.
In fourth grade, my parents, sat us down. I can remember it was a Thursday night because the spelling words were due on Friday. And
Mm.
I was sitting on the porch studying. I'm still pissed that nobody wrote me a note that I didn't have to take the test the next day. Um,
Really?
oh,
Not
yeah,
fair. Not
not fair.
fair.
Yeah. But I remember, they said, Dad's going to move to the city closer to where he goes to work. It wasn't a time in the world of divorce where there really was an arrangement that feels a little more modern. So we visited him sparingly. He was living in Manhattan. We had some great Manhattan weekends, but getting to the city midweek when we were in school, which felt like keeping us in our school and mom's house felt like the right thing for both of our parents.
Hmm.
And
And
again,
where were you?
I was in
Where?
Middletown, New Jersey.
Okay. Uh-huh.
My mom was a realtor at the time, and she and her girlfriend decided that they would invent job share so that one watched us while the other worked, and vice versa. They shared floor time and space. They were sort of like modern, thoroughly modern Millies of their time, really. I didn't
Wow.
know anyone else who had parents that were divorced.
Hmm.
It was, um, it felt other and unique. There was no club for us, like
Yeah.
there is today to meet for lunch and have a buddy. And, there was none of that. And
Hmm.
like I said, I wasn't even it wasn't even shared with my teachers what was going on at home. It was very matter of fact. And unlike my parents, because they were, very open and still very much loved each other, they had like an incredible relationship throughout their divorce. So I think they knew that, but they knew more than us kids. And they really did model a beautiful way of consciously uncoupling, if you will. And
Hmm.
I I just remember thinking that the lesson there was show up and get 100. Like I showed up and just got 100 on my test. Be good, be independent, be um, keep at it.
Hmm.
Keep
Yeah.
showing up strong. And I think that stayed with me for a really long time, even through some of the death loss I learned,
Hmm.
because that fortitude and strength and resiliency was so celebrated that it became sort of part of me.
Hmm.
When I wish someone would have said, "Would you like to talk to someone?" That it was a
Right.
rupture and a grief, and it really was bigger than the parents in the room were imagining how it felt to a kid. Now, I had my sister by my side and a great travel buddy, and we would go into Manhattan to visit dad. And like I said, we were like a big old gang at any event that we had, school events, and they didn't speak poorly of one another. And I have really fond memories of the way that they
Amazing.
got along. So again, it was always sort of what I held up as the way to do it. Although when I got married, I was like, I'm never getting a divorce.
Yeah. I mean, don't we all? I mean, isn't that nobody gets married thinking they will.
No,
So,
famous,
right.
famous, famous last
Famous
words.
last
Yeah,
words. Right,
famous last words.
exactly. Uh-huh.
So
Yeah.
yeah, fast forward, I married my college love and the father of my two girls. And very shortly after, uh, I lost my mom. And it wasn't until I started to really do this work that I realized that part of why our marriage became untenable, mostly for him, was because I suddenly needed support in a way that I had not needed it in the past.
Sure.
So, poor guy, he got a little bit more of a less independent me and a more broken me. And it was too hard for him to hold. And I don't think he could share those words. I think he just felt unhappy and came home one day and said those exact words to me: I'm not happy. And we've known each other since, what I say, we were kids. And of course, I wanted him to be happy. Um, and I could probably write him a thank you note on my finest, newly monogrammed stationery, replete with my new last name, because what you don't know then, you just think is the norm until I was in a relationship that felt like it better supported 360-degree me. And
That's right. That's right.
yeah,
Yeah, I mean, it's sort of like, yeah, he didn't bank on this or he didn't, right? And also, he did take a vow for better or worse.
yeah,
And this was clearly worse. And I imagine, you didn't say this, but I'm imagining that, what tends to happen is that in a relationship in which, in patriarchy, in which you were probably the more supportive of the two, right?
hmm.
That you didn't now have the energy to keep pouring into him, and he didn't sort
It
of
was my
turn the.
turn. It was my
It
turn.
was your turn. I'm trying to be so. Do you hear how diplomatic I'm trying to be about this,
I hear,
guys?
I hear you. I hear you.
Right? Like, because you're being very diplomatic, so I'm gonna, mirror that. But yeah, right? That's how it works. Um,
The worst part, I think, and it didn't help to support my grief or my divorce, was that I was also living very far from New York, New Jersey, where my family was. I had
oh,
moved to Chicago for
oh,
for his work. I
mhm,
found wonderful work. I was a reporter at the Chicago Tribune back when and worked for WGN TV. And I loved what I did, and I had lots of good friends, and my kids had great school friends, and um, their dad traveled for work at least like 3 nights a week for his
mhm,
work and why we moved there. And I wanted to go home, and it seemed inevitable. I wanted to be with people
right.
who could support not just my divorce, but could also support the loss of my mom, the one that would be supporting me in helping to grandmother the girls and mother me in a way that I needed at that time. And in Chicago, and I'm sure in many other cities, when you try to leave the state, it's called
Mm,
removal, which really sounded as if my I was taking off my kid's arm or something.
right,
But I
right.
wanted to be somewhere where I could be supported in my work, which was now not only part-time, but was going to go to full-time to support me and the girls. And it just seemed wholly unfair that no one was even taking that into consideration. They were like, well, shy of him not helping financially and or being abusive, and no one took my being alone in a
Mm,
place where I didn't have any family
sure.
to help me care for the girls, and no, new financial position. It just seemed unfair. And so I used to
Hmm.
say I was a prisoner of the state of Illinois.
Yeah, right. I mean, really, right? I mean, that happens to so many people I know and so many women, right? It's like I moved here for him. we're not we're not going to be together, so why can't I move back? Now there's also the I don't want to take my kids away from their
Sure.
dad. They're right, because there's a we're
Which I
doing it
didn't.
differently, and
Yeah,
of course you didn't. You just wanted support.
I did.
Yeah, that's really hard. That's
It
really
was.
hard.
It was.
Yeah.
But I am grateful in retrospect. My friend Nate calls it the Grace Kelly. He called me the Grace Kelly of divorces, where I really made a conscious effort in
Mm,
what I had learned from my parents to not speak poorly of their dad,
yep.
to put some measures in place where I had felt unsupported as a kid. I went to school, I told them what was going on. I said, we're not going to say divorce, we're not going to say broken home, we're just going to say the girls have two houses. They have a loving house with their dad and one with me. And we used to say, when my kids would meet someone else, they would say, do you have two houses?
Yeah,
I have two
right.
houses. And then one had a second house in Aspen. And I was like, no, 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 that's
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 I've been a
that,
little different.
that.
I, yeah, right, exactly. A little bit different.
Yeah.
Um, so let's talk about, I want to go back to this then you were stuck with you're stuck with, but then you were had to face, right, the grief
Right.
that nobody was talking about or holding, and it was just like, oh, okay, let's move on, right?
Yeah.
Everything's fine.
The one person that I would have called who understood what was going on was my mother,
It's not
100%. She
there.
had been through
Hmm.
it. I saw her survive and thrive. And I tucked her example, in my heart and back pocket. Like I knew if Ellen could do it, so could I. But it was tough. It was really tough. And I had my little one was 18 months, which is very,
Oh
very
God.
young,
Yeah.
and for lots of infertility issues in between. And so it felt like, oh, she just came into the world and now this, which was really hard. But something that my mom also shared with my sister and I kept coming to the forefront that she said, I feared for who you girls would become if you saw the example of my staying rather than my leaving.
Absolutely.
And I think that's what sort of gave me that initial knowing that if he wasn't happy and I wanted him to be happy, that we would figure it out. I saw my mom and dad both go on to have relationships that were solid, that were loving, and one with each other. And that was my hope. Um, we didn't part exactly like my parents did. We weren't quite as elegant, but I think my girls would say we did a pretty good job.
And Barry, your parents probably had their very inelegant moments as well
I'm sure.
that they kept from you, right?
I'm
Like
sure.
the idea that they did it perfectly, right? It's like
No, no. I
there's
mean,
myth.
I still, I talk to the girls about financial independence and a lot of things learned going through the divorce process. Lots of girlfriends. I was walking around saying, "Do you know how much your mortgage is? Do you know where all the bank accounts are? I was trying to
Uh-huh.
really educate that women's financial independence. I remember my mom telling my sister and I both we should have our own bank account. So teasingly,
Yeah.
she said, so that nobody asks you if you need another black pair of shoes. But in all seriousness, she wanted us to have our own financial independence and
Yes.
knowledge.
Yes.
And I felt like that was so urgently important. And I have flashbacks of walking the check that my dad would give my mom each week for groceries and really thinking long and hard about, I'm aging, I'm 60, so this was 100 years ago, but I remember walking that check in and being like, $110. How are we going to survive on $110? And what I didn't know is like my dad was responsible for college through this wonderful, college fund that they had at his work. And all the things that, as you
Uh-huh.
said, all the things that a kid doesn't know about
Right.
what
Right.
it looks like on the outside, but like definitely PTSD, seeing the number on the check. And so there was just lots that I learned. Like I didn't want them to be worried about the finances. We didn't,
Yeah.
we didn't, I was very careful about the
Mm-hmm.
way I talked to them and what they were included in and what they knew. But much like my mom, I was really grateful that later in my relationship with my husband, we've just been remarried 16 years, that they see a relationship that I'm really proud of.
That's right. Yeah. Yeah. Yes. Yeah. Um, so I want to get back to let's talk more about your grief work
Sure.
and sort of like how do you help women process grief? I know that writing is a huge piece of this.
It is.
So will you talk about what it's like, what you do, how you help them, and like what does it do for them?
Yeah. I think
Mm.
what we don't realize is that it is a practice. We show up for what I call a grief tending practice. That
Mm.
we have to, even if you have to pencil it in, that we make time and space on our calendar to be with our grief. And I find, especially with non-death losses, that writing can really be a beautiful place to become your own story witness.
Mm.
Sometimes you have a lot of big feelings and there isn't anywhere for them to go. You're
Yeah.
angry, you feel a lot of shame, you are afraid, and those are big feelings. So if you are not somewhere where you can find the support of others, I think writing becomes such a beautiful way to process. We're always looking for movement, so whether that
Mm.
is moving, can be talk therapy, moving can be the physicality of, moving the emotions through your body. Sometimes we need to lift heavy things, and I always say, and break shit that makes us feel like we can process some of that safely, so we can process some of those big emotions. um, but in my groups, especially in the writing groups, people feel comfortable showing up for a prompt and process group because they don't feel uncomfortable that they don't have a death loss. There's no, I always say there's no grief Olympics, but in that kind of a group, that mixed loss group, I think that it's helpful to have actionable and accessible tools. So
Mm.
writing seems to be one across the board that feels like it's safe, that when you put something in um, a notebook, it's private,
Right.
um, and we can feel really unraveled and undone in all of our financials feeling public, and our, maybe we have kids in school and we're suddenly single and showing up at things alone. And, I think there's some safety that we can find in
Mm.
using the writing process. Um, Sometimes it's like coaching forward. What are some ways that you can um, see yourself in community? What can you
Mhm.
sign up for that feels like you could go and meet new people? Who could
Mhm.
you reach out to, almost like networking? Who could you reach out to in your past that you may know that would feel like comfort and connection? So we lean on all kinds of tools, but a lot of what we do in our circles is accept that we do learn to live with this loss, and
Mhm.
that it can sidle right up alongside our joy, and
Mm.
that both things can be true at the same time, as is true with so much that we process in the divorce, um, on behalf of our family, on behalf of the dreams that feel quashed, and so much. And I
Sure.
I think yeah, there are sometimes it's making a playlist that's like full of ragey music or sad a crying playlist. I always say, like, the A
Yes.
side and the B side of however you're
Right.
feeling, and giving yourself permission, even if it's for a few minutes a day, to just be with it and name it, the sadness, the anger, the grief, capital G grief. A lot of people say
Mhm.
to me, well, they try to minimize it because it's not a death loss. And I um, wholly disagree. And because I've been um, on both sides, if you will, I just think
Yeah.
find your people. Like, you don't want to join a group where there is only death loss. So make sure that you're looking for, a group where you can show up as your all of yourself and all of your grief, and that it's appropriate. So I
Yeah.
like a non-death loss group, or a group where
Or
other
mixed.
people, yeah, are also going through the process.
Yeah.
Um, I know that was what was so helpful to me back when, was a group called Divorce University, and it was just somewhere where I knew I could
Huh.
show up and learn from others who had been through the process before me.
Yeah.
Um, but I think we have to name it to tame it. That's what I say. So I think
Mhm.
being okay with saying I am grieving, and finding some tools and resources that feel like you can find movement that's appropriate for you, whether it's a talk group, a writing group, a physically moving, movement group. Um, we are always looking for movement. So sitting stagnant and not telling anybody and being with those feelings can really create a lot of dis-ease in the body.
Mm-hmm.
And yeah, it can be really soul crushing. I also
Yeah.
think we need to be seen, heard, and witnessed, even in something that may make us feel, I had so many feelings of failure and shame. And yet at the same time, I felt empowered and wanted to figure out how I could learn to be with this loss and not just survive it, as I said, but thrive. And I watched a
Mm-hmm.
mom do it, and I sort of thought I can too, but not in like the way that we are like holding a big dumbbell over our head and being that kind of strong every single day. We need
Right.
days where we can put it down.
And fall apart and, right,
Exactly.
cry on the floor and whatever else needs to happen, right?
Exactly. Exactly.
I love that you talk about it as tending, that it's
Mm,
grief tending. Can you say more about how
sure.
you came up with that as a
Sure.
way of
Sure.
talking about it?
I do think that the biggest and hardest part of grieving is finding self-compassion. I
Hmm.
think we're really good at this voice that shows up in all of us that is really tough. We're really tough on ourselves. So
What?
tending,
What are you
yeah.
talking about, Barry?
So tending to me always felt like a very soft, nurturing, honest way of saying, I am going to show up for me
Mm,
and I am going to tend to this grief as I would um, any other part of me that is hurt,
mm,
broken, not feeling well, that we really do. We need it, we deserve it, and we have to look at it like a self-compassion practice, like self-care, and not like a bullshit bath with salts, although that can feel really great. But really to show up for the big stuff, for
uh-huh.
the big
Yeah,
feelings.
right. Yeah, the quote self, it's really is like what is self-care, right?
I know.
And it is such an ongoing I have a chapter about it in my book too,
Yeah,
right?
yeah,
It's like, we can take all the bubble baths that we need, but also if we don't like address the systemic issues
exactly.
that, and that could be internally systemic, but also,
Yeah,
culturally systemic.
sure. And how about the
Because,
stress of the paperwork, the
uh-huh,
all of a sudden overnight you're like an accountant and a banker and dealing with a lawyer and
that's
lawyers and
right.
tigers and bears. I mean, it's really something on the nervous system. And so we don't even realize that
Yep.
we have a completely dysregulated nervous system no matter how much we're trying to keep it together, and it's hard, and it is, like I said, it is a practice like anything
Hmm.
else, and we need to show up for it.
Yeah. Yep. And one of the sort of self-care tools that I advocate for and have my clients do is like put it all in a box and put
Put
it
it
the fuck
away.
away.
Yeah.
Put it the fuck away.
Yeah,
And then when you're ready to take it out and you need to work on it, have a separate email
I love
account
that. I say that
for
too.
all of your divorce shit so that you can go, okay, now I'm ready and I'm gonna light my candle. I'm gonna, have my favorite chocolate. If you drink, maybe you have a glass of wine. But something that sort of,
Compartmentalizes.
yes, there is a ritual
Yeah,
around doing it, and then there's a ritual around putting it away so
agreed.
that it's
Totally
just
agree.
not a constant.
Barrage. We can't. I
Right.
mean, just the ping of seeing it come into your phone when you're least expecting it, it gives you back a
Hmm.
sense of control. And,
Mm,
for many of us in death loss and non-death loss, we don't invite the loss. We don't often invite the grief, but how we meet it, we
mm,
can have control over it. And so I think
right.
that's, my colleague and mentor, Claire Bidwell Smith, calls it conscious grieving. And I
Mm-hmm.
think of that, same as all the ways that we show up with that, with a mindfulness. But, like you said, there's it's become so many mixed messages around self-care and
Oh,
consciousness, and
yes.
that sometimes those words just make us cringe. But in my definition, I'm with you. I think it is just like I said about the notebook. We could take it out, we can be with it, we could set a timer, but you can put it away.
That's
You
right.
I've looked on behalf of clients that think if they begin to cry and make space for tears, that they will never stop. And I say, I looked in the Guinness Book of World Records, and there is no such thing. So let her rip. My my
Yes.
friend and colleague was saying, she's a functional medicine doc.
Mm-hmm.
Her name is Ellen Vora, and she's like, tears need better PR. Like tears are movement
Yes.
too. We
That's right.
apologize in the first second that somebody sees us well up, and Ellen is like, take those tears to an 11. Like if you really ride out, just like every
Oh,
emotion, a
yeah.
beginning, a middle, and an end, a
Yeah.
really good cry lets your whole system, all systems on board know, like we have moved through something big,
Hmm.
and you can
Yeah.
feel really good after.
And I get it, that feeling of like, if I start, I will literally never stop. And I know that we know that that's not true, but it's I will be
Feel,
swallowed by it and I don't want to feel this shit.
oh, who
And if I'm
does?
gonna, right? But oh my God, every single one of us knows what it feels like on the other side of a really good cry. And it doesn't
Yeah,
feel good necessarily, but it certainly, this is catharsis.
it is.
That you are now changed. You
Mm.
are not the same person that was holding back the tears, right?
That's
That's the,
griefy too, that sense, that loss of identity. Who am I if I am not married? Who am I if I am
yeah.
single? Who am I? Like all of that. That is what we reckon with in death loss and non-death loss. And so
Mhm.
I think that too, finding this new sense of self and all of that, I think is so much harder than we give ourselves credit for in the process.
It is, especially when you are trying to parent your kids through their loss and their grief, when you are trying to hold down a job, when you're trying to work more so that you can afford to take care of said children, right? Like, it's not like life stops, right? We don't get like the red tent version of this
No,
where it's like, oh, you have your period, go in this tent and go and like, just go do that,
yeah,
right? Oh,
yeah,
you're grieving? Go in this place and just go do that, right?
yeah.
It's like, no, 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 do that while you're continuing to do fucking everything.
All the other jobs. And that is true of death loss and non-death loss. Same, it's
Yes.
the same. So I think it's really hard because I also sit with widows, and I will say it's different. They're different losses. I would never I always say compare and despair.
Yeah.
There is no comparison. There really isn't. But it is hard when that person is also over and over again, you have to continue to be in contact with them. So you're not
Yep.
ending something. Like I said, that ritual is not there. There is no burial. There is nothing formal. So I often say make them yourself. I think it's really
That's what
important.
I was about to ask you. Like, what can people do, right? Tell me about some of the rituals for this kind of, for
Yeah,
divorce in particular, right?
yeah.
What are some
I
of the rituals that you
I have
recommend?
told I have told people to bury a copy of their decree. that
Oh,
it can feel really great. I mean, have one on hand because I remember how many times I had to
yeah.
refer to mine to figure out like which dates
Yeah, don't
kids,
don't
the
bury the
kids
only copy.
no, the kids went where, but it can feel cathartic.
Uh-huh.
Um, Sometimes it can feel like ritual to go get something. Maybe you have a new name and you can go get something in your new name. Sometimes it's a license. Sometimes it's just picking up a prescription and telling them and ordering a coffee. All of these things. Like sometimes just hearing it back at you can feel kind of cool.
Mm.
I had never, they asked me if I wanted to change my name back. I was like, I never took that one. I didn't have to change my name. Um,
Yeah.
but I also think sometimes it can be lighting a candle on a day that feels like, even if it's like the anniversary of the day that you got divorced, that you can, I often say there are candles that are called yard site candles that are for the anniversary of a loss in the Jewish faith. And I
Mm.
have many clients who you can get them at the grocery, they burn for 24 hours. And sometimes we just need to see it go, the light
Go
shine
through the
on,
cycle.
go through the
Mm.
cycle, the light shine and the light go out. Um, you can write yourself a letter, I think is beautiful. I
Mm.
love the idea of doing it through the process, writing
Mm.
yourself a letter about what has gone well, or writing to your kids about your hopes and dreams for them and your
Mm.
feelings through the divorce. And like you said, putting them in a box. You don't have to pull them out right now. But sometimes even dating your page in your journal is ritual, where you
Mm.
can go back and say, oh, last year in January, I really looked like I was falling apart when I went back and peaked, and look at how far I've come. I think
Mm-hmm.
that's a really beautiful thing. So I always say, date the page, date the page, date the
I
page.
love that. Yes,
And I
yes.
know you've shared about people having get-togethers, and
Yeah.
I invited a friend with me on the day that I asked him to meet me outside, and we went for a really special lunch after, and made it more of a celebration than me walking out by myself. And I think
Yeah.
that too, can
Yes.
create a beautiful event, kind of the I'm going to be okay. Uh,
Absolutely. Yes.
yeah.
One of the things that I recommend, a couple things, is to have, like, especially if you're keeping the home, right?
Mm,
And
mm,
you, like, if you're staying in the home, you want to have a party when you feel, or if you're still in the grief, right? Have a gathering, something small, right? Have something that feels appropriate to
mhm.
where you're at. If you're not in a celebratory
Stay.
phase,
Yeah.
then
Yeah.
do not have a big party. But have people over and have the intention of the day be really specific and really clear that like we are here to move this energy,
Yes.
right? That we're going to burn some sage, we're going to, burn all the bedding.
I was
I
just going to say, we've had a make the bed party where we ask
Yes.
everybody to chip in for bedding, and
Yes.
make the bed.
Get new bedding. If you can afford a new mattress, get a new mattress. If you can't, it's fine. Just like strip it, sage it, get all new bedding. If you can't afford it, ask for it, right? Do a
Yes.
divorce registry.
Yeah.
Have your friends come over and reclaim the space, rearrange the furniture, right? Or even if you like where the furniture is, move it all out, dust, sage, vacuum, like just those stuck places of energy. It's about clearing the energy, open all the windows, whatever you need to do to move the energy and reclaim
Yeah.
the
I
space.
I painted the inside of the front door of the
Mm,
rental space that I moved from when we actually sold our place, and my girls and I moved just around the corner, but I painted the inside of the door this like shiny hot pink.
yes.
And it just felt so good. It
Yes.
felt so good.
When I got divorced, uh my bedroom, I made it as girly and frilly as I wanted. It was like all white and like just frilly, and
Oh,
I loved it for a time.
yeah.
um Yeah, absolutely. Like reclaim what is it that what pictures were you not allowed to hang? I was over at my ex's house a few months ago and we were going through like stuff on his walls and I'm like, this is not you. Like this is your ex-wife, his second ex-wife. I'm like, this is her. This is not. I was like, these
Oh, that's
colors
funny.
aren't like there's nothing about that. He's like, I've always hated that. And then similarly, she always hated certain things that we brought upstairs and put up prominently, right? Like,
I
I
like
love
the
that.
idea also of going to print some photos. We have so many
Mm,
on our phone, and it's really a nice thing
yes.
to like print photos, to even have somebody come over and take some of you that are new, maybe even
Mm,
from that said gathering, but putting
yes.
those in frames around so you're reminded that, oh, look at that one. That's the kids and I. I also, when I stopped wearing my wedding ring, I bought this like little rolling ring that was like three little interlocking rings. I bought it for
Hmm.
myself on eBay. It was like
Hmm.
the very famous Cartier rolling ring, and
Yeah, yeah, yeah.
I got it for a song, and
Nice.
it represented the three of us, which I thought
Yeah.
was so
Yep.
beautiful, and it felt like my very own, a ring that I bought myself that I could wear that represented the three of us. I got an anchor tattoo. I think getting a tattoo can be like a really cool thing to do.
I agree.
Look at you.
I got this tattoo for those of you who are not watching. I have a tattoo on my ring finger
Mm.
that because I was like, I'm waiting for a man to adorn this finger, and like I decided that nobody was ever going to adorn it, so I was like, I don't need to wait for a
Do it
man to do it. I'm
myself.
going to do it
Yeah,
myself. And then, cut to a year later or less, I think I met my fiance, but it looks really good with the ring.
it does. It
I'm
does.
double adorned.
But that can feel pretty badass to go and
Oh,
put
yeah.
something. Yeah, it was my first one, and I got an anchor. And again, it felt like the points of the anchor felt like myself
Mm-hmm.
at the top and the girls on the side. And yeah, it felt
Yep.
strong. And um, it's a word that has it's part of one of the one of the ways that an acronym that I use in my grief support circles. But I just think that whatever feels like it will bring meaning, and like you said, a reframing or a reclaiming
Yes.
is
Mm-hmm.
really, the story I'm
Yep.
telling. Usually it's like the story I'm telling myself is this. The story that is true is this. And sometimes the story we're telling ourselves needs a giant reframe.
Right. Exactly. That's right. And like it may not, and it also may not feel true in this moment, but
Oh,
like what is actually the more empowering version of this story? Like,
yeah.
does the story you're telling yourself actually help
Sure.
you? Does it
Yeah.
serve you?
Right. Right.
Right? And like what would?
I
What
also
would serve you?
I also tell people sometimes the ritual is getting up every day and taking a shower and blow drying your hair and putting
Oh,
on great lipstick or, mascara or whatever that is. But I
yeah.
remember every day I made a deal with myself that I was going to get up, take a shower, dry my hair, make the bed, and put on some badass red lipstick.
There you go. And you're still doing that to this
I'm
day.
still I'm still doing it.
I love
It's
it. I love
empowering.
it. It is. Barry, tell us quickly about your grief circles and where people can find you if they want to join your grief circles.
Yeah, sure.
Yeah.
So the one that's online that is appropriate for all is
Uh-huh.
on Tuesday nights from 7 to 8 Eastern, and we meet in 6 week sessions. So
Okay.
you can catch a session at the end of March, but there's always another 6 week session coming along.
Great.
Um, and then in October, I'll be at Omega, and
That's
that
right.
is a creative retreat. I go with movement specialist Kelsey Morrow, and the two of us really tap into creativity and movement.
Mm,
And it's really great there. It's a place where you can really go on beautiful walks, meditation, all your food is made for you. And I think we can really, like you said, the world doesn't stop, but you can stop your world for just like 3 days and drop in to show up for yourself in your grief and your creativity. And I think it's really an empowering couple of days. And it
Wonderful.
allows you to make that kind of space.
It's great. So all of this is on your website.
Yep,
It's
memorycircle.com.
the memory circle. What tell what's the meaning of the memory circle?
I felt that when I lost my mom, that I became the keeper of the memories,
Hmm.
that keeping her memory alive, um, keeping rituals alive, wearing some of her things.
Mm.
Um, it just felt right to me.
Yeah,
It was interesting because
beautiful.
it was like an intake query on the bottom of a podcast interview. And I hadn't searched it, I hadn't done anything. And I don't know if you believe in divine intervention, but out of the keys came the name. So it wasn't
Hmm.
really something that I intended to mean anything much, um, except that I had been hosting circles as a peer, and
Mm.
it just felt right.
I
It
love
wasn't,
it.
yeah, I had done marketing and PR for many years and written many headlines in my journalist days, and it was much less studied than that. And later, it came to serve well because my dad was living with memory loss, and I started to support caretakers as well that were living alongside folks who had
Yeah.
experienced an illness like Alzheimer's. So
Hmm.
I think it keeps serving.
I love it. I love it. I've always been curious about that. So, all right. Barry, thank you so much for being here. I love your work and your wisdom for all of my people. So I'm
Oh,
just thrilled to
I
have
love your
another
people.
conversation with you.
I love
Yeah,
your people.
they love you.
Thank you again.
Thanks, Barry.